One of the big questions I get is why would someone want to do a rhetorical criticism and what is the goal or purpose of rhetorical scholarship? What's the benefit of it? What does it offer us in terms of knowledge that we can use? This lesson, we're going to explore just that. I'm going to offer two metaphors that I hope will help you understand why rhetorical scholarship is important and why it helps us get useful, usable knowledge. Here are the two metaphors that I believe will help us understand rhetorical scholarship more deeply. The first is the rhetorical critic is like a professional chef, and the second is that rhetorical scholarship is like a cookbook. Let's dive deeper into those concepts. Let's start with the metaphor that the rhetorical critic is like a professional chef. Now, if you're like me, you probably eat food by just scarfing it down, and maybe you'll say, oh, it tastes good or it tastes fine, but you don't have that much depth in your explanation of why you liked it or what was going on with that dish. But if you had a professional chef like Gordon Ramsay sitting next to you, he would be able to tell you a lot more about that dish, what went into it, the different ingredients, how those ingredients work together. They'll be able to pinpoint, oh, there's lack of balance because of this. And so one of the critical things that chef could be doing is helping us understand that dish more deeply, helping us understand the richness of what's going on, help us appreciate the complexity of the dish that we are trying to eat. Likewise, a rhetorical critic can help us understand the nuance and depth of a persuasive act. They'll help illustrate all the different parts of what's going on and how they work together to create a coherent whole. So while a chef might talk about the importance of having some acidity to balance off the fattiness of the meat, a rhetorical critic might explain something like, hey, it's really important to have a kind of organizational strategy that will help you build your argument. Or the rhetorical critic can say, hey, these metaphors here work together in this way to help persuade the audience. And so according to Dr. David Zarefsky, a professor of communication, argumentation, and rhetoric at Northwestern University, rhetorical critics can help make clear the underlying dynamics of the rhetorical work. And so if we think of the ingredients as the underlying dynamics of a food dish, here, when we think about rhetoric, the underlying dynamics might be the different types of things that the person did in their speech or their other form of advocacy to help influence the audience. Whether that be repetition, metaphors, building out a narrative, making sure they're developing their character and credibility or their ethos, all of those things might be a part of the underlying dynamics of a particular text. Now going back to the idea that Chef Gordon Ramsay could help us understand the richness and the depth of a particular dish by walking through all of the different elements of that dish, he could give us more appreciation of what the chef actually did to create that dish. Likewise, according to Dr. Barry Brummett, a professor of communication and rhetoric at the University of Texas at Austin, rhetorical critics can do the same. They can help us appreciate the depth of experience that we're having and have us think about that in a more rich, full manner. And now that we know a little bit more about the goals of an individual critic, we can turn to think about what is rhetorical scholarship as a whole trying to accomplish and what is the benefit of having that scholarship. And this is where our second metaphor comes in. Scholarship is like a recipe book. If you think about what a recipe offers you, a recipe gives you detailed instructions about how to create a particular dish. It gives you the understanding you need of the ingredients, the different things you need to do to those ingredients, and how they work together. And that is kind of what we just explained in terms of a professional chef can help us unpack a dish. Likewise, a rhetorical critic can help us unpack a particular rhetorical act. But the inverse is also true. The recipe gives us the directions to make the thing as opposed to just having somebody tell us, here is why that dish tasted the way that it did. And so when we're thinking about rhetorical scholarship, we can think of each study as providing us this detailed account of the text, an account that will allow us to have more knowledge about how to do something similar, how to be more persuasive in the future based off the example given in that act of rhetorical criticism. And so here is where it really all comes together. If each recipe is giving us detailed information about how to make one dish, then a recipe book based off its number of recipes are really going to help us build our knowledge about ingredients, how to make particular food items, and give us a lot of options when we want to make something. Likewise, the more rhetorical studies that we read, the more rhetorical criticisms that we do ourselves, the more knowledge we're going to have on all of the different types of rhetorical appeals that we can make. And we'll also have knowledge about all the different ways people might try to persuade us and being able to recognize the individual parts of those forms of persuasion. But we still might ask, why does this matter? Why does building out this recipe book of studies about how to persuade others and how others might persuade us, why does that matter? And when I'm asked that question, why does this matter? I often think of the mystery box challenge on various cooking shows. So if you've ever watched Chopped or MasterChef, you've probably seen this challenge. It's where the chefs get a mystery box of ingredients, and that mystery box of ingredients is going to contain some strange things. Maybe it contains Cheetos, a prime slice of tuna, broccoli, and then sprinkles. And the chef then has to figure out, what in the world can I create with tuna, Cheetos, broccoli, and sprinkles? The idea here is that the chefs who have the most knowledge about different ingredients and different recipes are going to be the ones that are likely to produce something in that strange situation. So, likewise, in our lives, we are constantly being bombarded with different messages, and we also want to produce messages of our own. But the situation is constantly changing. A message that might have worked a month ago might not work today. And so, given the unique circumstances of a particular situation, the person who knows the most about rhetoric and the different types of appeals they can make, the different types of evidence they can use, the one that knows more about narratives and metaphors or other stylistic devices, those people are the ones that are going to be more likely to succeed in whatever situation they find themselves in, where they maybe need to persuade somebody or they know someone is trying to persuade them. And so, what rhetorical scholarship is about is trying to build out a wide set of skills that we can use no matter what particular situation we find ourselves in. And one last metaphor I hope will drive it home. And that last metaphor is a dance metaphor brought to us by Dr. Barry Brummett. He writes that the more dance moves that we know in abstract, the better able we're going to be to dance no matter what the circumstances are or whatever is playing in the club or at the bar. Likewise, with rhetorical scholarship, the more we know about rhetorical appeals in the abstract, broadly or even theoretically, the more likely we're going to be able to figure out what to do in a situation, no matter what that situation brings us. And so the ultimate goal of rhetorical scholarship is to give us a wide variety of options of recipes that will allow us to act no matter what the circumstance is.